All right, here's some good news for drivers and for consumers. You got prices at the pump still going down, down, down. 77 days in a row, gas prices have moved down. Jeff Flock's at the CME. And Jeff, I know while oil and gas futures rebounded a bit today, prices are still way down over the past couple of months. And I have to imagine this is very good news for consumers and good news for the economy. Your thoughts?
That has been a great piece of news for everybody that drives a car. It's just like getting more money in your pocket when the gas prices are $2.31 for the average. That is what it is today, as you point out. 77 straight days. It was, what was it, 236 a week ago, 255 a month ago. So we've had a steady decline and a steady rebate, fuel rebate, if you will. We'll see if that continues. We had a huge run up in oil today. What a day this has been, a trading day, up 8.6% on oil prices today. So we'll see if it continues. Where is it cheapest for gas? That would be the state of Missouri. We're at $1.88, the average gallon of gas in Missouri, and the cheapest gasoline anywhere. If you want to drive there, you got to go to Oklahoma City, $1.61 at the Food Mart on 44th Street in Oklahoma City, and that is absolutely good news, Trish.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Now, people, you forget what an impact this really does have, but when you think about consumer spending, and it's roughly 2/3 of the overall economy, that spending is so directly affected, Jeff, by the amount of money people have hanging around, and that correlates to gas prices.
A lot of people in the middle of the country, not you in New York there, but a lot of people in the middle of the country spend a lot of time behind the wheel driving around, and they burn up a lot of gas, and so that's a huge benefit for them. We'll see if it continues after this run up today.
Yeah.
8.6% jump.
All right, we're watching. Jeff Flock,
Okay.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. I'm going to be back in for my good friend Neil Cavuto again tomorrow. Let's take another look at this, right? We get reason to cheer. This is a nice looking big board, up 1,086 points for the biggest one-day point gain ever. And you have the S&P, the NASDAQ, all the big indices doing incredibly well today. I'm going to see you tonight on Fox Business, 8 p.m. for Trish Regan Primetime. Jerome Corsi is joining me as a guest. He says the FBI is going after his family now. He'll explain. He'll have more on his $350 million lawsuit.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Katie Pavlich, Doug Schoen, Lawrence Jones, and Tom Shalhoub. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Fox News alert, President Trump and the First Lady set to make another unannounced stop after a surprise trip to visit troops in Iraq. You're looking at brand new video of the president's first visit to a combat zone as commander-in-chief. President Trump making the 11th-hour flight under the cover of darkness on Air Force One. The lights were off, the window shades drawn, and with a military jet escort, President Trump addressing the troops and praising their efforts in the fight against ISIS.
The other reason I'm here today is to personally thank you and every service member throughout this region for the near elimination of the ISIS territorial caliphate in Iraq and in Syria. I looked at a map, and 2 years ago it was a lot of red all over that map, but now you have a couple little spots, and that's happening very quickly.
The president adding that he has no plans to pull troops out of Iraq and says the country can be used as a staging area to strike Islamic State. This comes after President Trump announced he's withdrawing troops out of Syria. He defended that move today, saying, quote, "A lot of people are going to come around to my way of thinking." And so we shall see if that happens. But that's kind of fun for the troops, right? And like a very moving experience to see the commander-in-chief.
They look like they really appreciate it. Now, I'm wondering, now, in your experience in the Bush administration, how far in advance do they have to plan these things? Is this something he could have? So this was in the works for a while.
About 6 weeks, I think they had planned it, and then you keep it very secret. I think that was one of the hardest things I ever did was trying to figure out how to plan a whole trip, because you can't have your deputies help you.
Yeah.
So there was only 2 people in my shop that knew anything about it, but you have to go and meet with all the reporters and the photographers and the pooler and get it all organized. But they can really keep a secret. And so this trip was able to happen. And yes, of course, it takes some planning. But Katie, this is a different region than before. I mean, it's obviously a lot safer in Iraq than it was in years past, a lot because of the great work the men and women in uniform have done there.
Yeah, and to the point about this not being planned, I wonder if President Trump wasn't actually going to go to Florida, and this was the plan all along for him to go visit the troops.
I think they
in
said
Iraq.
that they were, one of the reports is that they would have left from Florida if the shutdown had not happened. Yeah.
But to your question about Iraq and the situation there, I thought the most important thing that he said was about striking ISIS from Iraq. He specifically said that we are not going to be taking troops out of that country, which I think reassures allies in the region that, look, although we are taking our troops out of Syria, we are allowing the Israelis to bomb Iran to take care of the Iranian problem. Saudi Arabia is stepping up with money. There are concerns still about the way Turkey is going to handle the Kurds as an ally against ISIS in the region. However, him saying today, we're not leaving Iraq, there are 5,000 troops there, we are going to strike ISIS if we need to from this position, shows that we're still in the fight, despite them. They're very specific about their language. They say territorial caliphate, which indicates that the fight is not over. We've taken a lot of their land back. A lot of the cities have been taken back thanks to the United States and people in the region. However, the fight is ongoing. We saw a Christmas Day ISIS attack in Iraq just yesterday. But one fun thing, too, that is joyful is that the Iraqi government declared for the first time officially just before Christmas a national holiday for Christians there after ISIS tried to wipe them out in a genocide over the last couple of years. So lots to celebrate, and I think lots of calmed nerves in some ways from the president and what he said today.
And we should mention, Doug, also it's not just the military that the president gives a lift to, it's the diplomatic corps that is there as well. I mean, people across the government, from the State Department, but also even like USDA that helps get agriculture back and up and running in the country.
I can't say enough. Look, we're all partisans. We all have views here. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit later on, but we're all Americans. And as an American, I'm very proud of the president for going, particularly at a time, as Katie says correctly, there are questions about our foreign policy vis-a-vis the pullout completely from Syria and half the troops from Afghanistan. I think this is real good for America, and I just think on a day like today, we ought to just say thank you to the president. Again, I have many differences with him. We'll hear, but thank you for standing up for our troops. The battle against ISIS is not over. I'm glad he made that clear, and hopefully we hit them not only territorially, but wherever they are.
And we have a new, the new government in Iraq is there, so they can be reassured as well that there's going to be somebody there to help.
Precisely.
But also, that's important for our national interests as well in the long run.
And there's been a lot of questions, Mark, on where the president actually stands when it comes to foreign policy. And so, yes, this was an opportunity for him to go meet with our troops because they're serving while everyone else is celebrating the holidays. But the president, this was a moment for him as well because a lot of people wanted to hear with him on what exactly his military strategy is. And, you know, there's this conflicting view of the more libertarian point of view of having a strong military presence, but also not getting involved with every single country. But the thing that people are going to run into when it comes to this, and we'll get to it later on the show, is what happens when you're already there in a nation and fighting that war, and you have this war of not wanting to this view of not wanting to nation build, but you're there and you cannot withdraw those troops and open up a vacuum like the last administration did.
The answer is you have to nation build.
Reassured. I wouldn't say nation build, but if we're there, we can't open up a vacuum.
Dana, to your earlier point, too, about the State Department and other people working in Iraq on behalf of America, this also boosts the morale of local forces and local Iraqi leaders to know that the President of the United States is there not only as a show of force, but to listen to what they have to say, to get briefings on the ground from the people who are working on these issues, and talking to our military leaders as well to get some perspective. I know the President gets criticized for maybe not taking the advice of people around him, but he does go and meet with people and listen and then makes his decision. So getting that information from the ground will be very important.
Yeah, nothing like a first-hand account, Tom.
Yes, well, the reason I was wondering about the advanced planning of this is, wouldn't this have been an excellent time for him to announce his changes in Syria after having visited Iraq? If he knew he was going.
Especially if he was going to say that he has no plans to withdraw troops from Iraq, because those troops can be staged to deal with ISIS, then you might not have had 10 days of confusion.
Yes, and a lot of people. I thought the overreaction to the fact that he announced it, Mattis resigned, and then we saw the talking heads were saying, "This is it. Everything's imploding. Mattis is the only one we ever trusted. He was the only adult." I thought it was overdone. Yeah. But just if I want to second guess the president's decision, this might have been a nice time to announce the serious strategy.
Right. Well, and when he made the announcement to take the troops out, the reason there was confusion is because there wasn't this explanation that he gave today. He didn't say when he announced this that, look, we still have this place in Iraq. He did generally talk about allies being able to take care of these problems, not on our behalf, but stepping up to the plate in their own backyard and defeating ISIS in a way that's beneficial to their own countries. So it would have been helpful at the beginning if he said, look, we're getting out of Syria because we have plenty of resources in Iraq to deal with the ISIS problem. We're going to continue to fight ISIS despite taking away their territory. Of course, that war against the terrorist group is not done because they do exist in places like Europe and the United States. So I think he could have avoided some of that by putting this out.
It was rocky, and it seemed like the president was more concerned at the time. I get what he was saying, but it seemed like he was more concerned on reassuring Americans that he was trying to keep a campaign promise instead of actually telling us what he planned on doing.
We have serious problems. ISIS is not defeated. Syria is a cauldron. And Afghanistan, where, frankly, the Taliban is doing better and better, and President Ghani is on the ropes politically. All of this is bad for the United States. So while I absolutely applaud this vision and what the president said, we have huge national security challenges in the region that we have to deal with.
Doug, I did want to ask you one last thing in the minute we have remaining, which is the importance of a president, any president, to be able to use not just the bully pulpit, but the entire echo chamber to their advantage. And announcing something just on Twitter doesn't seem to scratch that itch.
You know, what I learned when I worked for Bill Clinton is getting that echo chamber going, orchestrating it, as you were describing as a senior press officer and then press secretary, is a hugely important task. And while President Trump controls the narrative frequently with Twitter, he doesn't have the echo chamber and the support.
Doesn't dominate it.
He doesn't.
He could have. But it's anyway. We're like, the media. We're like a bunch of raccoons in a room full of disco balls. Oh, just like looking all over the place.
That's really a lot of fun. It's my day at the party.
That's right. When you come to the 5, Tom Shalhoub with me, it's going to be a party for sure. All right, it's day 5 of the partial government shutdown, and neither side is budging. Brand new video of President Trump up next.